All right. So this is our main topic of the day. We want to talk about racism in sports. We'll come at it from the lens of racism in football. There is no way we can do this thing justice in even half an hour, and I don't think we have half
Yeah,
an hour. But we'll do what we can. So,
we'll
Yinka,
try
I
our
was
best.
telling you
Yeah.
when I told a friend of
Mm-hmm.
mine that we were gonna do this topic, it was like, "Hey, are you talking institutional and structural racism? Because that's the real big thing." And I know that's your point of view. I think that's my point of view as well. But there's an emotional part to this when there's monkey
Mm.
chants in the stands, right? And the victims are
Mm-hmm.
19, 20, even 28-year olds. Like, we're not 28, we're much older than that, right? Do they
Yep.
have, we think the bigger manifestation of racism is the lack of representation at the management levels. You know, like I read something, this was about a year ago, that in the top 5 leagues, there was only 2 black coaches total. I don't know if that's changed, but I don't know. I don't think it's changed because I don't think
It,
there's
it,
black
it
coaches
it
in.
hasn't. It's still two.
It's
It's
still
Nuno
two.
Espirito and Vincent Company.
Yeah,
That's
no,
it.
no, but that's in all the top 5 leagues. You know,
Yeah, I'm telling
well,
you. That's it. Those are the two.
Vieira got a job at Strasbourg, right?
Ah,
Vieira.
okay. So that makes
Yes.
it three.
So three now. Yeah.
So that
So
makes it three.
yeah, but as of last year when this article was written that I was reading, there was only 2. So let's say there's 3 now because I don't think there's any others anywhere.
It's three. Yeah,
Uh,
I
uh,
missed out. I forgot Vieira.
yeah, Raheem Sterling has been very active. There was a interview we did in 2020 where he's like, "There's no representation. Who am I going to talk to at the FA?" You and I think it was episode 1. We've talked about the lack of diversity at the referee level. There
Mm-hmm.
was the EPL made some news this week. The Crystal Palace, I think it was the Crystal Palace and versus Luton game, the first, as they say it, British, um, British South Indian or whatever it is they called him,
Yep.
Mr. Singh Gill, um,
Mm-hmm.
officiated the game, and that was the first time ever that someone of Indian descent was officiating. And I don't know if you remember when we talked about this. I'm like, you look at the stands, you look at London, and I specifically called out not just potential black referees, but potential Indian referees. Like, there's a
Yep.
lot of Indian fans who are just as passionate about football. And you don't
Absolutely.
see representation. So these are all the issues. I know you have a take on this, so I'm gonna chill. I'll let you have your take, and then we'll debate or discuss.
Yeah. So, so racism in sports has been a prevalent issue for a long time. Like you said, all races, or the minority, they're affected. But we're going to be looking at this from an African American, an African perspective, a black perspective.
Mm,
Um, and it's present across all sports. So it's not just football alone.
no.
I mean, Olympics, collegiate, F1, NASCAR, there are numerous examples, right,
Right.
over the years. So I think racism manifests in two ways. It's the racial abuse on one side, which is spoken to, and the
Mm,
other bit is the institutional one, which is like racial inequality
mm,
in terms of opportunities and in terms of people being in roles of authority, and people being in the room where discussions around the future of things have been had. You don't. It's filled with white male.
yeah.
Let's be realistic. Yeah. In terms of racial abuse, if I start counting the incidences that has happened, it's you can start from as far back as Jack Robinson baseball. There's a movie that was done on that. I'm
Yeah.
sure you remember
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
movie.
42.
Patrick
Yeah.
42. Patrick Ewing had major issues while he was in college, even while he played for the New York Knicks. Um, Tiger Woods, a lot of people will think, oh, Tiger is the golden boy of golf. He had his own bouts with racial abuse.
Absolutely.
Um, you remember Donald Sterling and LA
I
Clippers,
do
where
remember.
he was recorded by
Magic
his
Johnson.
girlfriend
Magic
saying, "I don't."
Johnson. Yeah.
Magic Johnson. So this thing cuts across board. Lewis Hamilton, Bobo Wallace, and the NASCARs. In football, you've seen Vinny Jr. multiple times. You've seen Romelu Lukaku multiple times. You've seen Marega multiple times being abused. Balotelli
Oh my
is
gosh.
like you need the number of games that he's not been racially abused is actually
Less than
is
when
way
it's been
smaller than the
racially. Yeah,
number exactly when he's been racially abused. You saw the penalty incident, Saka, Rashford, and Sancho.
absolutely. At the
Um,
Euros
not
in
at
2020.
the
Yeah,
Euros, it's but see that took a different turn because it was that really brought out the online racial abuse,
mm,
which in the past we were not really, a lot of people were not aware of. But that it showed the whole world that now there are people that hide behind their keyboards or behind a generic username
yeah,
and believe that they can just say whatever they want to say and attack people, right? So this racial abuse is rampant.
yeah,
But for me, I think that racial abuse in terms of severity or in terms of how important it is to what's going on, I think it's here. Racial inequality is like here.
mm,
The reason why racial abuse is rampant and nothing is done about it is because of racial inequality. Because the people where discussions are being had on how things will change, the people that are supposed to make those decisions are filled with people that are benefiting from what's going on, if
yeah,
you get what I mean, or they are
yeah,
not affected by what's going on, right? So you have a situation in Italy when Romelu Lukaku was racially
yeah,
abused. He scored, he went to the fans and he did
yeah.
this. And he was yellow carded and he was suspended for inciting the fans. And I'm like, if that had been a black referee, do you think he would have done that?
Absolutely not.
If the Italian board or Italian Football Federation was mixed, do you think that will have happened?
No.
So the people that are benefiting or that are not affected, they are like, see, just continue to focus on that racial abuse, right? That's the war. Don't come to this circle that we are in or this circle that we are in, where we are the ones in charge of things.
Yeah.
They're more than happy for that discussion and that focus to be on racial abuse. Okay? So it goes back to what Sterling said. Sterling was quite right. Who do I talk to?
Yeah.
You look at positions of authority across Europe. There is only one black guy on the board of any football club in Europe.
That's crazy.
One. And that's the Brentford. Brentford had one black director. Out of the 98 clubs, out of the 98 clubs in top European
Top
clubs, I
five.
mean
Yeah.
in the top five leagues,
Hmm.
98 clubs, we just said that we have three managers between 2008 and now. You remember this big black referee that we had? What's his name?
I don't remember his name.
Uriah Rennie. He was big, very, very big guy. Uriah Rennie last refed a game in 2008. December this year, right? That was when we had a black referee in the EPL. 15 years, 15 good years. And this is a league in which 45% of the players are black.
Yeah. And Yinka, that's my biggest problem. So I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take my. I guess I'm gonna do my take from the point of view of the player ascending into management, right?
Yeah.
Into coaching.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard all the excuses. So and so didn't do their badges. We know that's BS. Everyone,
Complete BS.
yeah, people who want to coach. Also for people who live in America who are not familiar with badges. Unlike in America, where you can just say, I'm a coach now, hire me. In Europe, you got to
Mm-hmm.
do certificates, let's call it. So they call them badges. So you
Yeah.
have to go from, to coach
Grade A,
youth
grade B,
teams, you
grade
have to
C.
get a
Yeah.
certain badge. To coach senior team, you have to get a certain. So a lot of black players get their badges. What they don't get is opportunity. And I'm going to tell on myself first. I'm going to tell on my club first. You know,
Yeah.
Arteta has been at Arsenal now for 4 years. He's had
Yep.
a few coaches quit on him. He's had to replace them. All his coaches
Mm-hmm.
are white, and
Yep. All of them.
and majority Spanish speaking. Right?
Mm-hmm.
His new second right hand man is not Spanish speaking, but he's white. So yeah, he just won um, coach of the year. There was a picture on the website. He and his coaching staff, all six of them white. Right?
White.
So what I'm hearing is, um, you haven't come in contact with any non-white coach throughout your career that you think could improve your your coaching room. That's really what you want me to believe. We've had, it took a while, but we've had a slew of black captains and vice
Yeah.
captains for at least
Mm-hmm.
the last 20 years now. Never mind
Yeah.
black best players on a team, Didier Drogba, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And many of them have tried to go into coaching. But at the end of the day, when when it's easier to not bang your head against the wall, you're gonna start banging your head against the wall and going to punditry. There was a time when you couldn't be a pundit either, you know. But now,
Yeah.
okay, that glass ceiling has been shattered. But this
Mm-hmm.
coaching thing, let's talk about the Rooney Rule for a little bit. For those who don't follow the NFL had
The
this
NFL.
problem, still has this problem. So they instituted a rule. It's named after the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Rooney family. And so the Rooney
Yeah.
Rule pretty much says, it's changed over the years, but it says if you have an opening for a coach, again, it's changed. You have to interview at least one minority, non-white person before you can give anyone else the job. So now it's changed.
Keyword here is
Interview.
interview.
You don't have to hire them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You don't have to hire them.
but what ended up happening? There was a lot of sham interviews, but over time, you know, imagine if, because something like 1/3 of coaches turnover every year in the NFL, 32
Yeah.
teams, seven
Mm-hmm.
to eight vacancies every year. That's seven, at
Yeah.
least 7 to 8 opportunities. Sometimes there's only two black coaches that get opportunities at all 7 to 8. You know what I mean? It's not
Yep.
it's not
Yep.
necessarily a one for one. So, but the point is, it started out mostly as a sham, and then guess what? Someone will have an opportunity to do a great job, either in
Yeah.
interviewing or as a coach, like the coach of the Steelers
Yeah.
themselves. You know what I mean? He won
Yeah.
something.
The Steelers. Yeah.
So let me see if I can find the next 34-year-old black guy, and then someone gets an
Mm.
opportunity. Or you just interview well.
Yeah.
You go, you prepare, and you kill your interview. And then it comes out in the press that, hey, why killed his interview? He's a great interviewer.
Mm.
And it's the what you talked about, being in the room where decisions are being made. That's the real thing, right? Because in the NFL, there's no black owner, right? There's
Yeah.
one
None.
Pakistani owner, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the guy who owns
Jacksonville Jaguars.
who
Yeah.
owns Fulham, right? So they're not really, without being compelled to do it, they're not bringing someone in who is not in their little club, and that's the reality. So you come back to the EPL, and everyone just pretends. We've talked about the 98 top clubs in Europe. What we haven't talked about is the England pyramid, the
Yeah.
EPL. And then, so there's 4 leagues that make up the England professional ecosystem. And I think that's
Yeah.
92 clubs. There was a time, I think the
Mm-hmm.
most they've had, at least since I've been following it for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. I think the most they've ever had in those 92 is like 2 black coaches. And there's been many times when it was 0, and there's many times when it was 1. And now that
Absolutely.
Chris Houghton is no longer coaching, that's 1, because he's usually either at the top or in the championship.
Akin, to buttress your
Yeah.
point, in the history of the EPL, you've only had 11 black managers. And I can count them for you. The first was Gullit at
Oh
Chelsea,
yeah.
Chris Houghton, Tigana at Fulham, Inns. Inns had a brief stay with, was it Reading or so?
Yeah.
He had more with West Brom, Nuno Espirito, Connor, Mullins, Chris Ramsey, Patrick Vieira, and Vincent Company. 11 of them. 11. Remember, so you talked about Arsenal. Kolo Toure has done his badges.
Oh yeah.
Kolo Toure had a chance to coach Wigan Athletic. He was hired in November, he was fired in January. He had 9 games. He had 9
And they
games
were
that he was in
terrible.
charge
They
of.
were terrible. Let's talk about why and how you only get an opportunity when it's a bad job to start with. So it was a terrible job that he took.
Terrible job that he took. But you now go through and you check Steve Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Wayne Rooney. They've not done a fantastic job across board too, but they keep getting the opportunity. They keep getting the opportunity. And I'm wondering how Kolo Toure was with Brendan Rodgers
Brent,
at Celtic,
yeah,
at Liverpool, and at Leicester. So you want to tell me when they were making any of those coaching changes, either at Celtic or at Leicester, nobody thought of, oh, this guy has been assistant for a while. Let's give him the job.
no,
How come it was the terrible Wigan's job that he got?
he had to take it.
How come he's not on Arteta's coaching staff as a defensive coach?
I know.
Kolo Toure is for me, Kolo Toure is an Arsenal
Yeah,
legend.
yeah, invincible, all of that.
Invincible, all of that. And yet, maybe his talk is not as high as a Patrick Vieira or a Thierry Henry that might say, I'm only interested when Arteta is leaving,
Yeah,
right? Kolo Toure, I mean, that's a fantastic opportunity. That's a fit one. The glove fits the hand perfectly.
yeah.
But what happened? Nothing.
I'm
Nothing.
sure they never talked to him. Yinka, we've
They
talked
never
about
talked to him.
Frank Lampard a little bit. So my joke about Frank Lampard when he got his first opportunity in the championship. So for those who don't follow this thing closely, the championship is what the second level,
Derby County, right?
yeah, Derby County, the second level of
Yeah.
English football. It was rebranded as the championship. So the top level is the
Mm-hmm.
premiership. So he went to Derby
Mm-hmm.
County in the championship, and I always joke that he improved them from sixth to sixth. They were sixth the year before he
Absolutely.
got there. They were sixth. But
They
why
were
that's
six at the
why
time he
that's
left.
significant? He had a bunch of Chelsea kids who went on to be,
Yep.
if not superstars, really, really good players. Tammy
Yep.
Abraham, who we've talked about on this show, played for
Mason
him.
Mount.
Mason Mount, who unfortunately he got injured, but I rate him. Not everyone rates him. I rate him
I do
a
too.
ton.
I do too. He's
Uh,
a good player.
yeah, he had them as young players in the championship. They were definitely a higher level than where they were playing at, and he still only came sixth. And missed out on promotion. And then he came to Chelsea. And how do we know he wasn't great at Chelsea? Because when he left, some other guy came in, Tuchel came in, won the Champions League, and moved them up some in the
Yep.
Premier League. And then he got another
Yep.
opportunity to come back and do an interim job at Chelsea. And I'm like,
At
how?
Chelsea. How? How? It is ridiculous, Aki. It is completely ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. But this is what we have to deal with.
Yeah,
But like I said, positions of authority positions of authority are lacking diversity
yeah,
right now. That's the summary. Okay? But the people that are in position of authority, they will now say, oh, we're kicking against racism, you should kneel. That kneeling is the most ridiculous thing ever. So when, what's his name? This Ivorian that was at United before, Zaha.
uh,
Zaha said, I'm
I'm
not
not
kneeling
kneeling. I'm gonna
anymore.
stand.
I'm not kneeling. Well, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's just aesthetic. Is you just trying to please people. You're not doing anything
It's
real,
virtue
anything
signaling.
factual.
And I told you the other day I
Exactly.
don't like using that term because it's been bastardized by people I don't believe what they believe politically. So I don't use that term, but that's what it is.
That's what it is.
It's virtue signal. It's like, look at us. We're doing all these great things for all these people, and you're really not doing anything. Now, okay, I will be remiss if I didn't mention I
Mm-hmm.
actually don't think Steve Gerrard has done a bad job coaching. I followed him when he went to Rangers. I thought he did a decent job. I thought
At
I,
Villa.
I thought his coaching in the Europa was actually pretty mature. For the
Yeah.
level of players he had. At Villa, I think Emery just came in. I was just better, more confident, just more experienced. I would
Yep.
have given Steve Gerrard, because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I thought Vieira should have been given an opportunity to work things out at Crystal Palace. I think Gerrard should also have been given an opportunity to work things out at Villa. But you get an opportunity to get an Emery, who is a multiple time, trophy winner. You get it. Such is
Yeah.
life.
Yep. Yeah. Such is life. Such is life. And I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I have. I can. We can call this unpopular opinion of the week.
go for it.
and I have one.
Okay.
I have one,
An
and
unpopular
it's
opinion
linked to our
buried in a
topic.
main topic. We're doing whatever we want
Exactly.
on this show, Yinka.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like I told you, you live in the US,
Yeah.
I've lived in London for a while.
Yeah.
Both of us, we've been racially abused
Oh yeah. Oh
before.
yeah.
But I understand what you said in terms of we're matured, we can take it, yeah. But at times, I think I, I don't know how I want to coin it in such a way that it won't seem that I'm being insensitive
Mm,
to how players feel and stuff,
mm,
right? But I think one of the reasons why the racial abuse is rampant these days is also because the people doing it know that it affects the players,
mm.
right? And at times, I think you giving them the middle finger, or like what Lukaku did, right? For me, I think that's the way to go. I've jokingly told you this before. If I'm on a pitch and somebody calls me a black monkey, I'll call him a white baboon, and we'll continue playing. And I'll look him in the eye, and I will use that as motivation, right,
Yeah.
to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think I will let you know I'm the black man. We have basket. Kobe calls himself the black mamba,
Yeah.
right? People call Kobe the black mamba, right? So if you call me black monkey, oh well and good. If you make him monkey chance, I don't care. I don't sound like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
But
Somebody
but
threw banana at Danny Alves.
uh,
Hold on, Akin. They threw banana at Danny Alves. Okay, maybe Danny Alves is the
no,
wrong
no, no, no. Do it.
example to
Do it.
use at this point in time.
Do it.
But he picked up the banana, he peeled it, he ate it, and he
Very
threw it back
slowly.
at
He
them
ate it very slowly.
very slowly. And he took his corner kick, and I think a goal came out of that corner kick, right? So I think also that, you know, the reaction at times,
Mm,
it's maybe it needs to be tempered a bit. I'll give you another good example, and I'll pass it on to
mm.
you shortly. The PSG played a Turkish team in 2021, one of the 2021 Champions League games,
Okay.
where it was in Romania, or rather, the refs were the officials were Romanians, right? Um, and the coach of the club that PSG was playing is a Turkish club, is Cameroon's ex-international Pierre Webo.
Oh, okay. I remember him.
So you remember
I
him.
remember him. Yeah.
So on that day, the ref, I think something happened on the bench, and the fourth official was drawing the attention of the ref to the bench to say, you need to give one of the coaches a yellow card for whatever it is that happened. And the ref asked the fourth official, which of them? And he said, the black one. And Pierre Weber went crazy and was like, he racially abused me. He called me black. And then, everybody came up, everybody blew up, and the game stopped. And I'm like, sorry, Pierre Webo, at that point, black is just an adjective for you. Aren't you black? The guy said the black one. Did he call you the N-word? No. What other adjective could he have used at that point in time?
His name?
Right? What if I don't know the name?
Okay. Was it a head
What if I
coach?
don't know the name? No, he's not the head
Ah,
coach.
okay.
It's like one of the Arteta guys. He wasn't the head
Okay.
coach. Right? So I'm like, see, at times, yes, some N-word monkey chant is ridiculous, it's stupid, but maybe we focus too much on it, and we play the victim too much at times. Where what we really need to be focusing on is how can I change the inequality that is letting this thing continue? Which is why I line up completely behind Wilfred Zaha.
Mm,
Zaha was like, this is nonsense. Why are we kneeling? What are we leaning for? What is it going to change? When the whole positions of authority in the game are filled with white guys, refs white, boards white. So what managers white? What
yeah.
are we talking about? So at times,
Ah,
maybe we focus a bit too much on the abuse side, right? And like I said, I've been racially abused before, right? And when it happened to me, I was like, what the hell? And I'll show you people,
mm,
right? That I'll show you my worth, which is what I did.
mm.
Which is what I did. So maybe it's we need to kind of dial back and focus on what really matters. That kneeling stuff is complete waste of time. It's not going to change anything. Do they still kneel now, Akin, or has it
So
stopped?
I think the Players Association and whatever they're called, P something, EPL something or other. I think now they
Yeah.
do it on designated days. So I think they'll do like a couple this season. So not every game or whatever.
Akin, is
Uh,
that not the most ridiculous? Is that not the most ridiculous thing that you?
so
Is it,
let me put it this way.
come on
Let me
now.
put it this way. When so I'm cynical by nature. So when
Mm-hmm.
things like this are happening, I try to dial back my cynicism. Um, Everyone was talking in 2020 after the George Floyd um, murder that there was a
Mm.
racial awakening happening, right?
Yeah.
And I told a bunch of friends, I'm like, there will be a backlash when everyone, as we say in Niger, when the eye don't clear, right?
When
So
I don't
when
clear.
people finally wake up, there will be a backlash to that awakening. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I'm sad to report it only took like 2 years, right? So if you look in the US context, for example, there was a mad rush in the corporate world to double down on DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and
Mm-hmm.
inclusion. Some people call it
Yep.
DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. I do believe in diversity efforts. That's what we're talking about right now. But I also
Mm-hmm.
thought there was a little bit of over indexing on it. Um, I
Mm.
think it became kind of a cottage industry, especially
Yep.
for retiring lawyers or lawyers who were just tired of practicing law.
Mm.
And then it just became, yeah, and it became a hustle. If I'm being, I'm not trying to be controversial. It became a hustle. I have a lot of friends who practice in the
Mm.
area. I know a few people who really do it the right way, who are really about how do we really get results. But the
Yeah.
the proliferation was a little too much, right? And
Yeah.
guess what? Once the high of again, I don't want to call a murder a high, but that the aftermath of all that, once that high, like once it wore off, and then once the high of hyper, what would you call it, the economy was overheated, right, from stimulus
Yeah.
money and COVID money and hyper productivity from everyone being home and just churning out work, right? Once all
Mm.
that died down and we went back to the real world and a near recession, the first jobs to go were the DEI or DEIB jobs. They were the
You
first to
see?
go, and then all
You
of a
see?
sudden there's this backlash in the US. There's a Supreme Court, anti-affirmative action ruling. There's activists on the right, you know, trying to extend that ruling. That ruling was in higher education. They were trying to extend it into the
Yeah.
corporate world. They sent letters. So
Mm.
these activists, just like two people, sent letters to big law firms, who had like minority scholarship programs for first year law students, saying you have to now open this up to everyone. You can no longer do this. Now, that's
Mm.
not what the Supreme Court said at
Mm.
all. But some people were scared
Yeah.
to get sued. Some people were scared to get put on blast. So some people started pulling back, and that's the backlash. So for
Yeah.
me, it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like the best way to have this conversation is not, when everything is overheated. It's what makes sense. Because for me, like I think you and I have talked about this before, when sometimes I think about when I want to solve a problem and I can't really figure it out. I think about what is the converse of what I'm trying to solve. So I give you an example, right? So
Yeah.
say in the teaching profession, right, in most
Mm-hmm.
parts of the world, the majority of teachers are women. They're not
Yeah.
men, right? I would argue that
Mm-hmm.
you get better results when you have more men, not more men than women, just more men, period. So like it's good for kids to see both men and women teaching. That would be my counter argument, right? So hopefully people can see that and say, okay, this guy maybe he knows what he's talking about a little bit. Same thing in we've talked about in the US, for example. There's a suicide problem in U.S. military, U.S. veterans, retired military and all that. I mean, it's really, really bad. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's like one every some ridiculous number, right? And it hasn't been solved, and when you think about it, there's not a lot of women in positions of power in the military. And when you think about it, there's also a lot of rapes in the military. There's a lot of really, really, really bad things that happen when it's only one sex. Again, with the Catholic Church is an example. There's no woman in the room when decisions are being made. That's why when kids were molested, it was covered up. All of this stuff happened. And then finally, before I go back to you, Yinka, when the Great Recession happened, oh 07, oh 08, whatever, there was a study that was
Yeah.
done, right? Public companies in the US that had even one woman on their board lost less money than those who didn't have any women. Because when there's
Mm.
a woman, even one woman among 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 men, you do less stupid things. You know what I mean? You just do
Yeah.
less stupid things because there's less groupthink. You know what I mean? So my argument would be
Yeah.
in that VAR booth, I'm bringing it back to football right now. Put in someone who is not from the same neighborhood as all these guys. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
maybe they bring a different way of
Absolutely.
thinking into the mix, and maybe they're not thinking of supporting their quote unquote brother, and they're just thinking of how can we make the game better.
You're absolutely right. Right. So it goes back to in in the context of sports,
Mm,
the lack of diversity in the key positions, in decision making positions, is the main reason why we still have these rampant
yeah,
racial abuses, rampant racism across board. It's as simple as that. It is as simple as that. Because the fines, I always tell you this, in in an environment where there are no laws,
mm,
right? And the probability of getting caught is low, the crime will always be high.
absolutely, one thousand
Okay?
percent.
That's exactly what's going on right now. When people are racially abused, you just ban them from the stadium. So how does that affect the price of bread? you know, you need to do something a bit more. You need to. It's not kneeling. Whatever it is, it's not kneeling. That kneeling is just is silly. I'm sorry. It is completely silly,
Yeah,
and you should be able to find clubs. If you're not going to find them, dock them points, right? Do something about it.
yeah.
Don't. But you can't just leave it as it is and say we'll continue to kneel to show that we kick against racism. Really?
And I,
Come
I
on,
I think
guys.
I think what's happened is because it's so bad in La Liga and so bad in
Hmm.
Serie A, the EPL is looking at it like we're not so bad, so we don't have to do
Well,
anything.
exactly.
And that's
We're not
so
so bad.
that's
Yeah.
so that's so sad because what you don't find. So I mean, if you read all the biographies and autobiographies of all the even the '80s players, like what's the Liverpool legend again that we just talked about? Not
Kenny Dalglish,
no, black
John
number
Barnes.
7, yeah, John Barnes. When you read all his accounts, right, it talks about what it was like in the stands, what you heard from the
Yeah.
stands in England in the
Absolutely.
80s and early 90s.
Exactly.
It was ridiculous. you know
It was
for the
crazy.
most part that doesn't happen anymore. For the most part, you know uh in England it doesn't happen anymore for the most part, like you said.
But we have other sports
Yes,
where
yes, yes, yes.
we've had physical attacks on maybe not players but even some of the, for example, LeBron James. You saw what was painted on his
On his
on
on his
on
home.
his on his
Yeah,
fence
the
on
fans, yeah.
on his home. I mean, you can go back to what I said. For example, what's his name? Patrick Ewing. He had it bad,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
very very bad. You know, but it's just all these wishy-washy reactions, all this. It's just because in the places that matter, where the key discussions are being had, the diversity there is not there. It's not, I mean, it's not good enough.
yeah,
It's not at the level where you expect it to be. Like I said, no ref will. A black ref will not go to Lukaku and give him a red card
yeah.
because he shushed the
So
crowd.
why
The
why
crowd.
is the
That's just
ref
silly.
one so hard when you pretty much have like a all white? How is that even? I don't think, like, I mean, you lived in London. London is probably my favorite city in the world, right? I love going to London. London is so incredibly diverse. How do you even get away with this?
It's a potpourri of cultures in London.
Yeah,
You have the Jamaicans, you have the Africans, you have the Indians, you know, everybody in London,
yeah,
but yet in a product that is as universal as football,
yeah.
you can only get 15 white refs,
It's amazing.
and it's not as if they don't have the qualification. In the lower leagues, in the weekend leagues, you see black refs. In the lower leagues, you see black coaches. Okay, you understand what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
do.
You see black coaches. These guys are qualified. What they're lacking is experience, but experience will only come with opportunity.
Y-
The only reason why Frank Lampard is experienced is because somebody gave him the job.
Yinka, I'm so glad you brought up Lampard, Gerrard, and Rooney. These were three of the best players of their generation.
Yep.
Probably at some point, top 10 in the world, in their prime, each of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the black equivalents, their black peers that they played with at the same time. It will be a
Yeah.
Didier Drogba for Rooney. It would be a Patrick Vieira. Is a little older than Lampard and Gerrard, but
Mm-hmm.
pretty much, same
Yeah.
level.
Pretty much.
Obviously, Vieira is better.
Saul Campbell.
So Campbell, and then even guys like you notice how guys like Clarence Seedorf eventually had to go manage in Africa.
Yes.
And Clarence Seedorf is the most decorated uh,
For me, he's
midfielder.
one of the greatest midfielders of all time. When we did our all-time
Yeah,
11, I told you he has. I think he has to be in
it's
there,
amazing
right?
how good
But
this guy
yeah.
was.
Anyway, that's another topic we'll talk about some other day.
And
But Clarence Seedorf had to go coach in Africa.
but
Saul Campbell struggled to get, was it Macclesfield or one
yeah,
small Division
but
4
he also
team?
was
Saul
deputizing,
Campbell.
deputizing
Oh
for
God.
a coach. I think a national team coach. I think it was Trinidad and Tobago. So there is no black equivalent of Frank Lampard getting a Chelsea job, let alone getting it twice. So let's talk about the ones that have gotten jobs, right? So Patrick Vieira went the route that they tell us you're supposed to go. He joined City as a player. He graduated to the academy, coaching the academy. He had good success. He moved to New York to coach their affiliate team, New York City FC. He had success there, and then he got the Crystal Palace job.
He
Now,
went to Rennes. No, no, he
sorry,
went to
went to
Rennes in
runs in
France.
France, and then got the
Then he came to Crystal
Crystal Palace.
Palace.
Now, I've had so many arguments with people about this Crystal Palace job. I'm like, he stabilized them as that 12th place Crystal Palace. That was not Crystal
Because
Palace.
that is who they are.
No, that's what they
Crystal
that's
Palace
what they
with the
became under
current
him.
with the current
Yeah,
squad.
yeah.
Exactly. With the current squad, Crystal Palace at 12th is a fantastic position for them. Have you seen their squad?
Bruh, remember who he took over from? They were about to be relegated the season before he took over.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, 12th is not good. And then when he was fired, I don't have these numbers in front of me, but he had just played like just the most brutal schedule, right? He had played something like, I think I think 5 or 6 of his last games with the club were like top 10, many of them away. And I'm like, he's going to win some of this. And he's not getting battered. They're losing 1-0, 2-1, 1-0, 2-1, right? And yet that wasn't good enough.
So Akin, let me say something, and you can consider this an unpopular opinion also.
The second one.
Based on the second one, based on CV and your resume, Patrick Vieira should have taken the Arsenal job
Oh,
ahead of Mikel
bro,
Arteta.
1,000%. No, that's not
What
unpopular at
what
all.
has what has Arteta done? Right, Arteta has not done
Nah,
anything, and he was handed the Arsenal job on a platter of gold.
yeah,
The only thing Arteta had on his resume was what?
working for Pep.
He was a deputy to
Yeah,
Pep.
but
That's
Ateta
it.
also kind of worked for Pep. But okay, he worked under the system that Pep designed at City.
I mean, Vieira, you
Yeah,
meant
sorry,
Vieira too
Vieira.
kind of
Yeah,
worked for
Vieira.
Pep.
Yeah, you know,
And Vieira, in terms of legendary
nah,
status
it's
in
not. It's
Arsenal,
not even.
Vieira is up there.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
he's not even comparable to
No,
Atiba.
no.
But you chose not to. You could have gone to Crystal Palace and said, whatever you want, we want that guy as our next coach.
Yeah, yeah.
Why didn't that happen?
So that really bothers me. And then when I think about our favorite player, Thierry Henry, so now he was an exception because he actually got a big job as his first job at Monaco, right? But then
Yeah,
but he would never have gotten it if Monaco was doing well. They were not doing well. This is a
yeah,
theme. This is a
yeah,
theme. The minority gets an
exactly.
opportunity when when a good job has become a bad job, right?
They looked at him and they said, "We have small boys, and we need you to come and just let us stay relevant,
Yeah.
right?" And he came in. He did a decent
He
job.
tried to
But at the
do
end of the day,
he tried to do a good job. He's a disciplinarian, right? They chose the players over him because he's like, and
exactly.
he's very introspective. He talks about it all the time. It's like, you can't talk to today's players the way you could talk to us. And that was his
I
undoing.
can. There was an interview that he did with a player that they both stood up, right? He returned his chair into the normal position, and the young man left his chair and walked away. And Thierry looked at him like this, like, dude, put back your chair. And the guy came back and he put back his chair. So he was a
Yeah.
disciplinarian. And now it's benefiting him because he's now in charge of the under 21 team for
Yeah,
France.
the Olympic
And
team.
you've seen his record,
Yeah.
the Olympic team. He's been winning, 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 winning. So Thierry is another good example, right? Thierry had done more than Arteta, but they still overlooked Thierry. You see what I'm
Yeah, no,
saying?
no, no. I'm not disagreeing at all.
I'm happy Arteta is turning out fine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Arteta should be fired,
Yeah.
guys, but we're just saying if you look at it, objectively, there was no there was no obvious advantage that Arteta had over either Thierry Henry or Patrick Vieira.
And bro, we haven't even
None.
talked about African players. Well, we've talked about Kolo Toure, but we haven't talked about a bunch of other African players that have years and years of service in Europe and they're never considered.
Never. Never considered. Never considered. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So, Akin, like you said, we can go on and on and on about this. But I just thought we both thought this was an interesting topic
Yeah.
to kind of touch base on, and dive
It's
into.
a sad topic.
It's a sad topic,
Yeah.
but let's lighten up. Let's lighten up the mood.
Okay.
Just like an outro. So this is very, very funny.
Okay, go for it.
I'm sure this Nigerian artist called Small Doctor.
Yeah, come on now. That's my guy.
Okay. Small Doctor had a song where he said, "Want to grab
I want
penalty
to
or
grab
throwing."
penalty Latroy. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So when I tell people that Small Doctor must have heard of this
Uh-oh.
from somebody within
Oh
our
Lord, we
group,
can't say his
and
name.
he made a song about
We can't
this.
say his name.
No, we will. We can now, can't we? I
We
guess
can't
we
say his
can.
name. We haven't
Right?
talked to him in
So this
years.
happened. So this happened in 1992. If you guys are listening, in 1992, GSS2 interclass competition, right? A friend of ours actually took a spot kick, and the ball ended up on the byline.
Amazing. That is hard to do.
So there are several times I've told people this, and they tell me I'm lying. I pick
No,
up the phone and I call Debo.
no.
I call Debo and Enru. I'll say, guys, please, what did Oje do in
Why do you have to say this man's name?
1992?
Why do you have to say this man's name?
But nobody knows. Nobody knows. I didn't say his full name. I just said this guy took a spot kick and he went to the byline.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
So
gosh.
what got penalty or throwing happened
It happened to
in
us.
1992.
It happened to us.
Happened to us. In Ilori Secondary School. 1992.
The crazy thing was,
interclass competition.
this man insisted on taking the spot kick. There was no one, no one who thought he should have taken that kick. No one who thought he was a good player. Like, I was never much of a player, but I don't think this man was better than me. Like, he was not a good player. But he went, grabbed the ball, placed it like it was gonna do something.
And guys, the field, our football, because our school is, if you've been to Unilorin before, you know that it's a massive, massive school,
Yeah.
right? Our school, we had ample, so our football field was as big as a standard football field. It wasn't a five-a-side
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
what. No, 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 no. It was as big as a standard football field. This guy played a spot kick, a penalty, and the penalty ended up byline.
It's hard to do. That's
So,
all I'm gonna say. It's hard to do. You know,
but it happened.
legend.
So small doctor should come to give us some
I know,
royalties
right?
because
I
that
know.
song,
Someone
it
probably told him
probably
that story.
because I someone probably told him the story. That's the only way that could have happened. So when the song came out and I'm like, this happened to me, now people are like, you're lying. I'm
No.
like, it did. You're lying. I'll pick up before I'll call Enro or Debo. What did what did
Well,
what did Oje do in 1992?